What's up, y'all? Welcome to a special edition of the Kenny Parker Show. This is the my brother's name is Kenny Book Special. Let me show the book. My brother's name is Kenny Book Special Q&A number 2 because I guess some people in the comment section has more questions, wanted to get some more insight. So, quick spoiler alert. If you haven't read the book, we will be talking about the book and things in detail about the book. So if you want to get the book and don't want to hear what happened already, I suggest that you step off right now. If you have no intentions of getting the book and just want to hear what's going on and be part of the chat, you are welcome. We are speaking only about the book. My brother's name is Kenny today. The link is in the description below. Also, thank you to everyone who has the book, who's read the book, who's listened to the audio. We put in a lot of work to making the book happen. So thank you. Um, Let me make this a little bit bigger so I can see and give everybody enough time to come into the chat because we're going to jump right in. Um, the OJ Brahma piece. Hey, Tracy. Hit the like button. What's up, Tracy? Explicit hip hop. Wow. Explicit hip hop. What up? Spook Realm 4Q. Um, what's good? Uh, JT says, peace and blessings, KP, and the live family. Apologies, I can't make the book show, but I know you will make it a great show. I'll catch you in the rewind. Yes, big up to the rewind crew who's going to catch this later on. Gregory Nettis, what up? Roz Mel, what up? The Real Chef Daddy, what's good? Dear Marasuti. Dwight, what up? Sweet Goldilocks, what's up? So glad to see the regulars in the channel. Not in the channel. Let me make this smaller. In the chat. MMA Crossfire, what up? Chemistry Russell says, get the book. It's an awesome read. I really appreciate that. Yes, let's see. Greg says Kenny Parker book got more spoilers and plot twists than The Usual Suspects. Thank you, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. The allergies are kicking in today, probably in my top 5 movies of all time. So that's a great compliment. I'll accept that. Derek Mallory, what up? So let me jump in with this. For those that um, are familiar with the channel, you know that I've mentioned that the book was actually much bigger, probably twice the size that the book eventually became. The book, when I finished writing down everything I wanted to write down, the book was over 500 pages, and I wanted it to be under 300 pages. So I scaled down some stuff and got it to 292, which I'm happy. Like I said, I trimmed off the fat, as I would say, and got right to the story. Um, and what I trimmed off was a couple of things. One was I gave examples in the book. It was character development. I gave examples in the book of my mother, her mindset, and my relationship with her, and her relationship with our family. And I think I had quite a few examples of what I would consider her offbeat personality and the way she processed things. But I took out a few of those examples because um, I felt like I got the point across. Like, you guys get it. You understand exactly what, from the examples that I put in there, you guys can get a pretty good grasp of what she was like. And also another person that I deleted, not deleted, but took out a lot of their backstory was my friend Daryl. Um, I gave a lot more into his family and what was going on with him, but I took a lot of that out and I used him as he pertained to me, um, which led me to a story that I had in the book about him that pertained a life lesson that I learned. And I'm going to say it in a minute. I just want to get a couple more comments that I see. Anthony Augusta, salute KP. I listened to the audio book. Awesome. Thank you so much. Worked so hard on the audio book. Um, as a barbarian, what up? Just put off with the wifey. Catch the rewind. Or just finish the audio book as I've already done the book too. Big up. Thank you so much. And sweet Goldilocks, Kenny, whose idea was it to put quotes before the chapters? That was my idea. 100%. Uh, I I don't know if I saw a quote somewhere or I had a quote that I wanted to put in the book, and it came to me that I can also get my point across with putting little quotes as almost as intros. So the quotes were really sub chapters. I'll have a chapter title, and then I might put a quote to sum up what you're about to read. But sometimes in the middle of the chapters, I might throw a quote in there to sum up what you're about to read again. So I used it almost as sub chapters, and that was 100% my idea. And I took a while to look around and find quotes that I thought fit. Um, One of my favorite quotes of all time is one man's trash is another man's treasure. That's in like my top 3 or 4 quotes that I ever heard because it is so true. What's garbage and whack to one person is amazing and priceless to somebody else, which leads me to this story I wanted to tell. Thank you for asking that, sweet Goldilocks. Um, what I didn't put in the book was that Daryl had a very abusive father. And when I first met Daryl, his mother and father lived together. They were married. This Daryl uh, and his brother, his cousins was there, Jared, and the mother and father. One nice, happy family. They had a lot of possessions, and it looked like a happy family. And I met Daryl when I was 13. Well, I met him years before, but we became friends when I was 13. But I didn't find out till about 16 or 17 that there was a lot of physical abuse in his household coming from his father. Um, and I should have had a clue about it because when I was 10, me and Daryl were in the same class, but I didn't know him at all. We didn't speak at all. We were in the same 5th grade class. And I remember the teacher was giving letters to every student who was having behavioral problems. And of course, I was in the mix because he said I talked too much in class. I didn't have behavior problems, but I talked too much to the other students. So I was getting one of these letters. So I knew I was in big trouble because the letter had to be signed by your parent and brought back. So I knew that when I took this letter home, I was in big trouble. And I remember I was just about to leave the class, but there's one other person there, and it was Daryl. And I remember that our teacher name was Mr. Burness. I remember I was leaving, and Daryl was saying to Mr. Burness, please don't make me take this letter home. And he was like, if you give me one chance, I will act right. I will change. Like you'll see a change in my behavior. Just please, I can't take this letter home. And I'm walking out of the class as I'm hearing him say this. And Mr. Burness is going, it wouldn't be fair to the other kids who have to take the letter home to their house, if I gave you a special consideration. And I remember Daryl started crying and he was like really pleading to the teacher, like, you don't understand. If I take this letter home, it's going to be big problems. And I'm walking out the class thinking to myself, well, I'm in big trouble too, actually. But I was thinking, damn, like, this dude really must be like in real bad shape because I know I'm in trouble, but he's crying to the teacher, pleading. So I don't know what happened because I stepped off into my own fate. Um, but I remember that, and I brought that up to Daryl years later. I remember that us being 10. So their parents eventually separated when he was like 16, 17. We were like 16, 17. And then he started telling me a little more about what was going on in his life, which made us bond a little bit more. His father has since passed, rest in peace to his mother and father, actually. Um, but his father had passed. So fast forward a couple years later, when I was 17, going on 18, um, I was in a group home at this point, and I had a really good friend in the group home. His name was Anthony. His name was Anthony Munnerlin. I was trying to look him up on Google, but I could not find this dude. And he was a member of the group home. He came after me, and he was such a super cool kid. And me and him hit it off so much. He was like my best friend in the group home. And I remember we were going somewhere on Flatbush Avenue to get something. He wanted to buy some clothes or something when Daryl lived a block away. So we stopped by Daryl's house and I brought this kid from my group home to Daryl's house. And the guy, he walks in Daryl's house and he's looking around and they had like a whole living room with a big color TV and a couch, the famous couch that I said was the poison couch. He saw the couch and the house and the stairs going up to the next level, and they had chandeliers and not chandeliers, china in the cabinet, and all of this stuff. And I remember Anthony. We left Daryl's house, and Anthony was going, "Man, look at their house. What problems could they possibly have?" And I remember him saying like that to me, and as we walked off. And the next day, I came to Daryl and I was like, yo, Daryl, my man was marveling at your house and he was going, damn, look at their house. What problems could they possibly have? And Daryl was going, man, he don't even know the half, of the physical abuse that was going on in this very house. And I was telling Daryl, I was looking at it, you got to look at it from both perspectives. From your perspective, you see the color television and you have all these things, but you're being abused, so you're not happy. But from his perspective, he lives in a group home. And you can imagine what went on in his life for him to end up in a group home. And for him, people that live in their own house with a color television is as good as it gets. So from both perspectives, y'all were both right. And it left a lasting impression on me about how perspective is everything. Fast forward a couple years later, I mentioned this in the book when I was in college and I went back, I had to go back to the group home for that summer. And there was new kids in there and they were running wild and I just couldn't stay in there. Um, and one of the main reasons that bothered me was that I came back to the group home and I heard my man Anthony was gone. And I was like, what happened to Anthony? And they was like, yo, these new kids, they beat him up really bad. And I was like, why would somebody beat up Anthony? And apparently somebody accused him of stealing something, which he obviously didn't do. And these new guys that was in the group home, they beat him so bad that whatever fragmented family he had in Brooklyn decided to take him out of the group home and bring him back to wherever he was from. So imagine wherever he was from was so bad that the city of New York put him in a group home. But they beat him so bad in his group home that his family or whatever it was, they decided it's probably best for him to go back to wherever he was from. And when I found out that these dudes beat up my man Anthony, I was just like, yo, I can't be in this environment anymore. And luckily for me, I was able to stay with Pam up in Jersey and it all worked out and I never went back. But that was one of the reasons that made me never even want to step foot in that group home was how they beat up my man Anthony. So all of that whole piece of the story was in the book originally. But um, when I decided to scale back Daryl's story a little bit about his father being abused, then I scaled back me going to Anthony's house. I mean, Anthony going to Daryl's house and marveling at his house. I took that out. So now I decided to just take Anthony out altogether. But I wanted that story in there, but it wasn't. But that's one of the things that I wish you guys could have gotten to have read. Uh, but yeah. So that's just something, a piece, one fragment of the things that was in the book. I have a few more things I want to talk to you guys about, but I want to just really get to your questions. Um, FU2, what up? Um, JT says, hey, KP, I'm still here for a little while. I have a personal question. Feel free not to answer. Did your treatment by John and Joe impact on you not having children? I think you'd be a great father. Thank you so much for that compliment. I would hope that I would have been. Uh, I don't think my outlook on family was so much affected by John and Joe as it was more affected by my mother. My mother's treatment of me um, kind of suppressed what would be normal family urges and family feelings. I lost some of that in my family structure. I put more on my mother than Joe and John. Only thing I would think about them was that I would never grow up. If I had kids, I would have never had been like them. And I look at my brother, shout out to my brother, Chris, um, who's a father of 3 children. Um, and to see him interacting with his kids, I just was with my nieces and nephews a few 2 weeks ago. To see him interact with his kids over the years and see how he raised them, he also is nothing like John and Joe. And I'm happy to see that he grew up, the man he grew up to be, because he was very rebellious, but the man that he grew up to be was nothing like them. And it could have been, a lot of kids learn from their parents and they become a reflection of their parents. But he didn't, and I would have thought maybe I didn't. I never had kids. It just didn't work out like that for me in my life. But um, thank you so much for that compliment. I think I would have been a good father. I think I would have been an overprotective father for girls, though. I needed a son. Um, if I had a daughter, I think I would have been so overprotective it probably would have been whack. But for a son, I think I would have been great. um, Uh, Rosmel says, I've been in that situation before, but I forged my mother's signature. The signature was so badly written that my teacher was able to tell it wasn't signed by my mother. My mother beat me. Oh, wow. Man, the fear, you're right. I should have tried to forge the signature, but the fear of getting caught forging the signature would have made the trouble I was in quadruple. So I was so scared that I just gave her the paper. I'm pretty sure I got beat with the extension cord for that. I'm 100% positive. I can remember one of my earliest beatings. I want to tell you all that story because it was actually kind of funny. But I just want to get a little bit more you guys uh, comments. Chemistry Russell, it's amazing to me how you've leveraged that pain to shape your perspective and become such a positive influence. Thank you. You're a bright spot on this dark canvas of the internet. The internet is very dark. Think people like X, Twitter, whatever you call it, is just a cesspool. But thank you, I really appreciate that, man. Uh, Samuel Gervais, what up? Uh, Hey, Boogie says, salute KP. I'm going to pick up your book. My extended family makes me want to move abroad. Entitlement is disturbing. Yeah. Um, Let me see. I just want to backtrack a little bit. Um, oh, Chemistry Russell wrote, Sweet Goldilocks. It was a great touch. Thank you. Um, yeah, the quotes. Um, I enjoyed putting them there, and I enjoyed researching what quotes I had in my mind what I wanted to say. So I had to look for a quote that kind of captured what I thought I wanted to say. JT, thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. Says, thank you for answering my question. KP, do you realize how much greater KRS' legendary career is knowing the backstory that you provide in your book? Thank you. Yeah, that was part of the goal. Um, for people to see the improbable ride, the amount of craziness that had to happen for us to get KRS-One, for all of us to enjoy. Um, like I said, I lived through and witnessed a miracle. It was a miracle what literally how we got to where we got to. And I always say most people don't even know the half when they see KRS. You don't even know the half. Like, and there's more. Like there's probably stuff I'm forgetting. I put in a lot. I don't know if I left out too much KRS stuff that I wanted to say. Um, but I definitely scaled back some other things. But most of what Chris and my relationship and the things that I saw, I said in the book, or I've said on the channel. Um, let's see. J Woo 72. Um, Cutie Pie, what's up? You didn't miss much, Cutie Pie. Patrick Y, what else? Says KP, I hate to be nosy. No, we're here being nosy. This is the purpose. This is the purpose of um this is the purpose of this live. Um, have you ever come in contact with your roommate, Diana, after that night you shared a room? Yes. As a matter of fact, she just reached out to me right before I went on tour on Facebook. It's funny, I was walking down the street probably about 15 years ago, and I bumped into her in the street. That means I hadn't seen her in probably 20 years. And I bumped into her in the street and we was like, yo, what's up? She was so happy to see me. It was all good. I was happy to see her too. I only got to know her for like 2, 3 weeks, but we had a really, really good rapport. And we exchanged pleasantries or whatever. We might have exchanged numbers and we stepped off. So I didn't see her again. But when my book first came out, um, she follows me on Facebook and she says, I'm gonna buy the book. I'm gonna get your book. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, thank you so much. But oh man, I was scared. And then after that, I didn't hear anything else from her. And like her page had changed. I'm like, oh no, she blocked me. She blocked me. And I really wanted to see, and like, I didn't really mean to hurt your feelings, but I wanted to get that point across. I wanted to give people a feel of what it was like being on my first tour. And so I thought that relationship was ended, but just a little while ago, she hit me up and was like, "Hey, what's up?" I don't think she read the book, but she said she bought it. But and she was like, "Hey, what's up?" And she was just, how's it going? So I'm like, "Oh, we still good." She doesn't know that. I don't think she knows that I wrote about her in the book. As Tisha as well. I'm cool with Tisha, and I'm pretty sure she has no idea that I wrote about her in the book. She's another one of my Facebook friends, and I bumped into her in Brooklyn. She has no idea. But that's not nosy. Um, Jack Swagger says, "My favorite part of the book is when Chris surprised you at the graduation. Can you share your memories of that day? What you guys got up to accept?" Well, I talked about most of what happened in the book, how it happened. I asked Chris to come to my graduation. It's the first thing I ever asked him to come to, and he said he would love to, but he had a show. I think the graduation was like a Sunday morning, and he had a show like Saturday night or something like that in another state. And so he was like, he's not sure if he'll be back in time. And I said, I was like, I understand completely. Just the fact that he said he would come was good enough for me. And so I didn't expect him to be there at all. But when I was walking through that tunnel, it was like a tunnel, like where the NBA players come out. It was at the Brendan Byrne Arena. It was called that at the time. That's where the New Jersey Nets played. So it was the same arena, and I had played in that arena as a college basketball player. You come into the tunnel like you're going onto the basketball court, but it's set up as a graduation. And I looked up, and he was like right up there in this the family section with shades on. Um, and I saw him, and I was just so happy to see him. He really showed up. That means he had to have gotten home in the wee hours of the morning and then turned around. Like I said in the book, he came to my dorm, and one of my friends told him where the graduation was. I never even told him where it was, so I had no idea he was going to be there. And after the graduation, like I said, we caught up. He came into the section. The parking lot section was where all everybody was meeting up, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's KRS." By this point, ghetto music. Not sure if ghetto music was out. Maybe You Must Learn was just coming out. Self Destruction was out, and he had Criminal Minded by All Means Necessary, but he was huge at that point. But everybody was bugging in the parking lot, and I was with Pam, and that's when he said, "Let's go get something to eat." I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, the limo. Let's jump in the limo." That's how Chris talks. Well, I got this limo over here. And I was like, "Yeah, oh my God." And we got in the limo, and we went and got some food, some champagne. It was just an amazing, amazing, amazing night. Um, my graduation, the fact that I graduated from college is just crazy. And that he was there. It was an amazing night. Thank you so much for liking that part. I'm glad quite a few people have said that that part really moved them. And I was hoping that it would. And, after all of like I've mentioned before, a lot of people said that the beginning part of the book was difficult to read, but I wanted to be explicit, and I wanted to see people to see what what I considered rock bottom really was, so that when you see the come up, you understand how amazing it is. And so I wanted people to also feel the emotion of me graduating from school and how amazing that was. And a lot of people have written to me saying that they like that part. So I'm very happy that that part got across the way it did. Um, we got a super chat. Fajito, thank you. As Chris said, Kenny rocks many good and plenty. Salute KP for this. My fellow commenters, drop a super chat and be a Don daughter like Super Cat. Shout out to Super Cat. Thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. I was talking to Mad Lion a few weeks ago about the incident with Super Cat and Nitty Gritty. I don't know. Super Cat had gotten to I don't want to say it on YouTube, exchange, a firearm exchange in a little ass record store in Brooklyn. And the guy who he had the exchange with ended up passing. And Super Cat beat the charges. Matt Lyons said he was there at the record store when this happened. So I was like, yo, that's crazy that you brought up Super Cat. But I'm getting off topic. Okay, let me stay focused. Um, the book had so much trauma. The graduation to me was a celebration of your brotherhood. Yes, it was. Um, yes, it was absolutely. Dr. Cincy says, I can't get the Piranha story out of my mind. How long did that take to recover from emotionally? Um, that was a wild story. It took a while because every time I got in trouble after that, my mother would just say, "You want me to stick your foot in the piranha tank?" And it would shake me up really bad. Like, no, no, no. So the threat of putting my foot in the piranha tank probably lasted weeks. But once my brother confessed that I was never really in the piranha tank, my mother never told me that I was never in the piranha tank. Chris told me they never really put your foot in the piranha tank. Once he confessed, I felt better, and I think I got over it because he told me the truth. Uh, but that was wild. Let me segue that into um, the first ass whipping that I really, really remember in my life. The first one I can remember, because I always used to say I got a lot of beatings, but I don't remember why. It had something to do with I wasn't listening. But this one I remember specifically. Um, Sandwich Vase, a supercat incident happened at Superpower Records on Church Avenue. Yep. Lion was there. Matt Lion was there. And he gave me some good insight. I can't talk about it, but he told me some stuff. Uh, so I was 5 years old, and I remember that I was in kindergarten, but kindergarten was like half the school year, half like you got out of kindergarten like 12 o'clock. Then I had a babysitter from 12 to like 4 or 5, and my mother would come pick me up from the babysitter. I hated this babysitter. She was always had a nasty attitude and was always talking, yelling at me, and just being a real bitch. So at 5, I knew I didn't like this lady. Okay. We used to sit at the dinner table at the end of the night. Me and Chris sat across from each other, and my mother and father sat on the left and right at the table. And they used to be talking about whatever happened in the course of their day. And of course, I'm being nosy. I'm listening, listening, listening. And whenever they cursed, they wouldn't curse, they would spell out the word. So I said, this is bull shit. She'll say something like that and, keep it moving. But I was too smart for that. I pieced together the words. And so I started getting like a little vocabulary going of curse words. But I knew that if I ever said a curse word, I was done. So, but I wanted to say something to my babysitter. So I heard the phrase, kiss my ass. And when I heard that phrase, kiss my ass, I thought it was the greatest thing ever. I could picture it in my head. It was perfect. I remember this like it was yesterday. It was perfect. And I was like, I can't say kiss my ass to the babysitter. I want to, though, but I can't. So the next day, I heard the word hiney. For some reason, somebody said hiney, which was, I guess, the kid version of ass. So when I heard hiney, in my mind, I heard kiss my hiney. And I said, oh, this is it right here. Kiss my hiney. Oh, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, okay, I got it. The next time this lady says something to me, I'm letting off. So the next day, I'm there in the afternoon. I'm chilling the whole day. And sometimes it was late in the afternoon, probably like 3 or 4. She said something to me, and I turned to her and I said, kiss my hiney. It was so dope. It was perfect. She looked at me and she said, what? I'm going to tell your mother what you said. Oh my God. It never crossed my mind as a 5-year-old the next steps after what I say, kiss my hiney. I thought once I said kiss my hiney, I was shutting her down. But when she said, I'm going to tell your mother, oh shit. And I remember my mother came to pick her. Now it's like an hour. I'm sitting there. You ever sit and your stomach is hurting from fear? And I remember sitting there. My mother came from work to pick me up. She had a big smile on her face. Hey, she said, hey, how everybody? And the lady immediately said, guess what Kenny said to me? He told me to kiss his hiney. And my mother's face went from like, to what? Like, you could see her face morph. And I was like, oh no. And my mother apologized to the lady and she said, trust me, he'll never say that to you ever again. And I could see her tone. I knew this was the biggest trouble I was ever in my life. And when we walking down to the car, I just started crying. And I remember, I don't know why I could remember stuff like this. I remember her saying, don't cry now. Don't cry now. I'll give you a reason to cry later. And soon as we got home, I remember getting my ass beat by my mother. And then my father came home, and then she was like, guess what Kenny said? And then he beat my ass again. I got 2 ass whippings for saying, kiss my hiney. And to this day, the word hiney still gives me PTSD. I don't even like using that word because um, I got in so much trouble for it. But I always looking back, I thought it was funny though, that how I pieced it all together. But that was in the book. But then I decided it was like, probably like a paragraph and a half. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna take this out. Um, I'm gonna take this out and just, I expressed that we got beatings. I didn't give examples because for the most part I didn't remember any, but I remembered that one. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna leave that out. So that was in the book, but I took it out. But yeah, that was the earliest beating that I remember. Sydney Rose says, "Don't cry now." Famous last words. Heard that before. Yeah, like don't cry now. Like this ain't the time, yo. There's no crying in baseball. There isn't. A Boogie says, you should have said kiss my grits. I have a similar ass whipping experience. Yeah, kiss my grits. You know what though, Boogie? Anything after kiss my, it was over. Once I said kiss my, it was a wrap. At that point, I might as well have said kiss my ass because the amount of trouble that I got in, um, I might as well have went all the way for the full effect. Oh my God. But I always thought that was funny. It was funny enough for me to put in the book originally, but then I took it out. Scorpio for Life says, had kind of similar, except my pop started laughing and they started arguing. I wish they had thought that was funny. My mother, the morph on her face. Y'all ever as a kid knew when you were really in trouble? Like you know your parents and you know that moment. Like out of all the times you ever been in trouble, you knew that this was the one. It was that. Facts. A Boogie said it was over either way. Yeah, it was. I should have just had a whole. I should have gave her every curse word I had in my arsenal. Might as well. Um, Greg Dad says I used to say "suck it" in my DX from the WWF that got me in trouble. Yeah, I can see that getting you in trouble. Um, but it's funny as a kid how you can't rationalize that far ahead. Your whole life is literally from now and minutes in front of you. You can't even see down the road. Just funny. Um, let's see. Jack Swagger, do you think if Coach Hartstein had not intervened and called your mom, you would have returned to school? No, no, absolutely not. Um, my mother threw me out. When was it? March 19th. I was out of school from March 19th to April 19th, May. I didn't go back to school till like the end of May. Classes are over in what, first week of June, something like that in New York. So I only had like 3 more weeks of school left. So I I had dropped out. I was done with school. Um, I was in such a that was the lowest point of my life, probably. I was in such a bad state that I had given up. And yeah, if it wasn't for Coach Hartstein, I absolutely would not have returned to school. Maybe in September of my junior year. Who would have known what would have happened that summer? Maybe in September of my junior year, I would have returned. But I had no intentions of going back at that point. That's a great question, Jack Swagger. None. It's amazing. Um, Sweet Goldilocks says, Ken, your mother seemed to be heavily into you guys' education when y'all were young, but it seemed more disinterested as you guys got older. What do you think happened? That's a great question. Wow, that's a great question, Sweet Goldilocks, because my mother was on us, but I was an excellent student too, though. My mother used to make us read when I was like 8 in the summertime. My mother used to be like, just because school is out of session doesn't mean you guys are not going to learn. My mother used to make us read the Amsterdam News. There used to be a paper called the Amsterdam News in New York. It was a black owned paper, talked about stuff. It had all of the news stories in it, but it had mostly from a black perspective. It was a black themed newspaper called the Amsterdam News. My mother used to make us, she used to buy the Amsterdam News and make us read it when she went to work. And when she came home from work, she would quiz us and ask us stuff about what was in it to make sure that we read it. And boy, you had better had read it too. Um, so she was on it like that, making you read the paper in the summertime. Um, I think when my brother started having his real, like he always had trouble, but when he got left back in the 8th grade, and I was an honor roll student in the 8th grade, but he got left back. Something happened that I believe in my life. Something happened around when I was like 12, 13. Period. Not just educationally, but period. Something happened where she was over children. I don't know what it was. I know Joe had left and it was just us. But something happened along that lines where she was over children. And at that point, I feel she was just counting down the days until we were gone. So our education, our upkeep, our physical, emotional well-being, she didn't really care about any of that. My mother never once asked me, how are you doing? How was your day? Never. She had no caring. Um, and it all happened around 12, 13. And I just think she was over children. I think she was ready to start her life. When I was 12, my mother had to be about 32. My mother was 32 when I was 12. I think by like age 32, she was like, yo, I'm good. I'm done with these kids. And so I think everything went downhill from then with us. And then my brother was wilding, just added to it. Um, yeah. Patrick Wise says it's called The Look. Yeah, yes, thank you. The Look. The parents have that look. But there's a look that yo, let me chill. Like my mother used to have this when she turns her head, like it was like this. Like, are you guys making me have to even acknowledge you? Like once she did this, you knew to chill out. But then there's another look, past the look, where you knew you fucked up. Like, oh shit. And you can remember the first time you saw that look, like, I'm really done. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. That look, yeah, but the look. Uh FP2 says, I'll give you a reason to cry. It's some torture type shit. My mother used to say that to me after she hit me. I don't mean to laugh at you too. That's wild. If I didn't stop crying, I would get hit again. And this is from 3 to 5 years old. Yeah, I think I've heard that. Like, I stop crying before I give you something to really cry about. Like, you get hit once and you're crying, and it's like, stop crying because I didn't really give it to you. And you think about it, and you're like, yeah, let me try to get my breaths together because I really don't want the next stage. You're right. Um, Divine Existence says, laugh out loud. Dan, one of KP's earliest memories is Kiss My Hiney. Traumatic experience indeed. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I'm proud of myself, though, how I put it all together, how I pieced it all together. That part I'm proud of. Christopher Cole says, how surprised were you when Chris Lighty became a super manager? Well, it wasn't overnight, it was gradual. Um, because he went from fighting in the club, being a part of the Violators, to being part of the Jungle Brothers as their manager. So he went from Latin Quarters fighting to the next time I see him, he's managing the Jungle Brothers. He's a little calmer. He did get in some fights though. I seen him have a big fight in a club. But he so once he became the manager of the Jungle Brothers, I could see where he was headed. And he started running with Tribe a little bit. I could see where he was headed. I didn't know he was going to get down with Def Jam, under Leor. And that's how he really rose to fame, under Leor. And then he left Def Jam and started Violator. But I've talked to Chris Lighty about that because I told him, remember the last time I really had a good conversation with him, I told him, you should really do some lectures. You should go around and talk to youth about how you went from fighting in the club to putting on a suit and making $1 million deals. That is a real story that young kids need to hear. And he was really like, you think so? Like, he almost was like, you think my story is worth telling? And I was like, really? Yeah, because I saw both of them. And it's amazing how you got there. Uh, I brought up to him too about how I first met him, and he was fighting in Latin Quarters, and we laughed about that. I used to hang out with Chris Lighty quite a few times. Um, to answer your question, I'm not surprised he became a manager. I'm surprised he became a super manager. He told me that he's the one who brought Warren G to Def Jam. If y'all recall, Warren G wanted to be down with Death Row, and when Suge was signing everybody, he signed Snoop, the Dog Pound Rage, whatever, and they was like, we don't want Warren G. And Warren G was hurt by that. And then when Warren G got a shot to do the song on that soundtrack and he did Regulator, then he blew. Then Death Row was interested in him, but Chris Lighty was like, they came with an offer. They came and outbid or outconvinced Warren G to go to Def Jam instead of Death Row. And Chris Lighty was like, there was some friction behind that. Um, like Suge was very upset with Chris Lighty. He felt like he stole his artist, even though y'all had Warren G sitting there and didn't sign him. So Chris Lighty did tell me that story. I'm paraphrasing, but you guys, something like that. Rest in peace to my man Chris Lighty. Um, JTKP, having played against the great Pearl Washington, which rapper or DJ do you think would have given you problems on the court like he did? Nobody. There was nobody like Pearl Washington when I was in high school. He was the most hyped up high school player since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You're talking 20 years. Pearl Washington was an absolute phenomenon. If Pearl Washington, if it was about today's standards, he would have been. I'm not saying he would have been like LeBron. LeBron is the biggest, most hyped high school player ever. Like his games were on ESPN when he was 16. Um, but Pearl, I remember the hype they had. Like Kenny Anderson had big hype. Remember Felipe Lopez? He had big hype in New York. Steph Marbury. Pearl was a little before that era, a few years before that era in media coverage, but he would, I think, would have eclipsed that. He was gigantic. I don't think anyone could compare to his talent and his hype at that time. You're talking 83, 84. And then into college. Um, A Boogie says, I remember the Amsterdam News. Yes. Sammy Gervais says, my moms used to hit me for sucking my teeth, rolling my eyes, or talking back. That's some real strictness. She would have killed me if I told an adult to suck on anything. Yeah, man. My mother was right. My mother, we used to go to the supermarket, and my mother would take me and Chris and say, before we go in this store, don't make me have to look at you. And while she's saying that, she'd be pinching your ear, like right here. She'd just be pinching your ears. And it hurt, not to make you cry hurt, but it hurt enough to be like, oh, and she's pinching your ear and she's like, don't make me have to, see you in this supermarket. And she lets your ear go. And we go in there and you knew, man, shit. Patrick Wise says Harlem-based newspaper, the Amsterdam News. It was based in Harlem. I didn't know that. Um, Seattle Rex, Kenny, why was your college basketball coach such a dick to you? I don't know. Um, I just wasn't his type of player, I think. Plus, he inherited me. He didn't recruit me. I mentioned in the book, he was the assistant coach my freshman year. The head coach, rest in peace, left after my freshman year. He got a position at Marquette University. So he left and the assistant coach became the head coach. So he I don't know if he ever really liked me from the beginning. I had a really good freshman year, but um, I don't think my defense was the problem. My defense wasn't what he wanted it to be. I was very good on offense, but struggled on defense. I don't think I was as bad as he said, but and and there's also favoritism. When you have favorites, you look for excuses to downgrade the other guy. I tell you a quick story. My junior year, um, I came into training camp. I was ready to go, and I remember we had a scrimmage, black, the green, blue and white. So we take our team, you split it into two teams, the blue team and the white team. So we playing against each other, but they brought in referees and stuff. So it was like a scrimmage, but amongst each other. And I remember there was a guy he recruited who he really was high on. Um, and I remember I had a big game in the blue and white game. And I remember I dunked on his boy who he recruited, dunked right in his face. Wow. And I had a big game. So the next day in practice, we're going over the game. So, there's film and everything. So I'm feeling good about myself. I'm like, yo, I had a good game. So, I feel good. He's going down the list of everybody. This, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this, this. And he got to me and he said, Kenny, you had a really good game yesterday, but I don't know if you're going to play like that every night. So that's why I can't play you. And he just moved on to the next person, next person. I was like, oh shit. It kind of like snatched all of the energy out of me. He couldn't deny that I played well, but he made up the excuse that I don't know if you're going to do that tomorrow. What do you mean you don't know? That's not how it goes. You find out. But it was that kind of stuff that let me know that he just wasn't messing with me. I don't know what it was. I never spoke to him since I graduated from college. I hope I never do. Um, JT, KP, how much resentment do you hold on to for having to be the family mediator while still a child? I don't really have resentment for that. Great question. I felt like it was my duty. I almost felt like I'm the only one that can do this. I'm the only person that knows my mother and my brother. It was just three of us. I'm the only person that could do this. And I wanted everyone to be loving and get along. So let me talk to my mother and my brother's behalf. Let me talk to my brother and my mother's behalf. I don't have resentment for that. I almost felt like if I didn't act like that, things would have been worse between them. And the crazy part is they ended up being close and I became the outcast. So, you know, who knows how life turns out. Uh, JT says that Bill Duke quote is one of the greatest lines in movies. I use it right to this day. The one he says, "You fucked up." You know you fucked up. Is that the one you're talking about? Yes. That was great acting. The lighting, everything about that was hilarious. Yes. Jack Swagger, Larry was an imperfect hero. That's exactly superhero. That's exactly what he is. What was his response to the book after he read it? Did G. Simone or other family members give you feedback about the book? Gigantic question. Um, how do I answer this? Like I said in the first chat, I spoke to Chris before I started writing the book about what I wanted to say and how I was going to portray him. And he gave his input too. Like I said, he was saying, don't forget to put these things in there. Don't forget to say this. Um, he remembers a lot of stuff too. So he was saying, like, don't forget to add these things. So when I first gave him the book and he was halfway through, I talked to him. This is the 500-page version. And I gave it to him, and he was halfway through and he said to me, yo, I think you came off with this. And he's laughing. I said, do you see how I'm portraying you in the book? And he's like, yeah. I said, you all right with that? He's like, yeah. He says, this is reading to me like a tragic comedy. That's what he said. Like he found up to first half, he found a lot of the stuff in there quite funny. Um, Whereas most people, it was tragic. I tried to add some humor into the beginnings throughout the book because some of the stuff to me was funny, but this is how it happened. But he found it real funny. He was calling it a tragic comedy, the first half. And he lived through it. So then uh when the book was about to come out, I told him that I chopped it down to 300 pages from 500. And he was annoyed. He was like, no, why'd you do that? He's like, there's so many good stories in there. You're going to, basically, you're going to mess it up by taking out too much. And I'm like, no, Chris, no. I'm leaving all of what I think are the best stories in there. I'm just trimming it down so it'd be easier to read. Um, but he was concerned that I might have taken out something that would be considered good. Now, the rest of my family, I believe, including my brother, but they are all very close with my mother. So I don't think my book went over very well with the other family members. I'll say it like that. That's about as best as I can explain it. They respected my truth, but I don't think they were jumping up and down. Let me say that. That's a great question. Um, Daniela, Don Freeman, what up? Back then, that was the way to discipline. Yeah, it was. Some kids you could just talk to and be effective, but back then, parents skipped right over that and just went straight to the strap. Yeah, because that's how they were raised. But I was the type of kid, I didn't need the strap all the time. I probably needed it once or twice a year because the thought of the strap was enough for me to act right. I didn't need my brother, even the strap wasn't enough to stop him from doing what he wanted to do. He was very stubborn. I'm going to do this like this. So that was this tug of war. I didn't need the strap. I didn't want no parts of the strap. And I got all of it, the strap, the extension cord, the fist, anything you could think of. Um, Patrick Watts says Red Alert made a nice assist on that Chris Lighty altercation. Yes, he did. Um, had Red Alert not stopped Chris Lighty from jumping from the DJ booth into the crowd, who knows what would have happened. Um, yes, that is. Red was a big brother right there, or like an uncle when he grabbed him. And you could tell Chris Lighty respected him tremendously because Red was holding him and tackling him. Chris Lighty could have fought Red Alert, but he didn't. Like when Red was holding him, he's just screaming, "Get off me, Red! Get off me!" But he wasn't like, "Get the fuck off me." He was more like, "Get off me, Red! Like stop! Like what you doing?" Like that. Shout out to the great Red Alert. Sidney Rose, I saw KRS last year. Someone mentioned the book to him. He laughed and made it clear it was Kenny's story. He seemed to be cool about it. Yeah, Chris has always been cool about it. I talked to him every step of the way. Every step of the way. Even saying I wanted to put our pictures on the cover. I asked him, he said okay. Like I got his okay through everything. Um, but other people who weren't there, people have opinions, but you weren't there. Like you didn't live through, and it was every day. Like what I put in the book for you guys to try to get an understanding of our life. It was every day for years. Getting abused at home, come outside, get bullied and robbed and chased and laughed at and terrorized, and then come back in the house and get terrorized and go back. And it was every day for like 15 years. And yet, my amazing part I always think about myself is I was always had a good disposition. I was always like, okay. And I went outside every day. Like I went to the park and I went to the neighborhood. All the guys used to bully me, and I went there every day in a good mood. And my mood was like good until I see Marcus or somebody like that, and he would change my mood. But my mood was always good. I can't believe my disposition in them circumstances. These are things that I marvel about myself. Like you're 9 and 10 years old, just having a blast in the midst of getting brutalized every day. Um, Hold on. We got a super chat right here. Let me make this bigger. Luke JQ, thank you so much for your contribution to the channel. Hi, Kenny, longtime listener from the Rewind crew. Big up to the Rewind crew who's going to check this out later on. Absolutely love the book. Thank you. I'd like to know, did Chris ever go back and check on Pepper? No, you know what I hear craziness? Chris told me, we talked about Pepper too. When we were talking about writing a book, and I said I'm gonna mention Pepper. Chris told me that the next day he was outside and saw a dead cat in the street ran over by a car. that looked just like Pepper. And he told me this after. As a matter of fact, he told me this after the book was already done. We was talking about Pepper. I don't know how we got in a conversation of cats, and he told me that I saw a cat that looked just like Pepper ran over by a car. Because I was saying that to put Pepper outside, a domestic, we had Pepper since he was a kitten. To put Pepper outside in sub-freezing weather in a nighttime in a place he's never been, it, to me, is a death sentence. And Chris was like, but cats have instincts. Like he might have survived that. The problem would be his surroundings. Like he never saw a car before, things like that. And then that's what Chris said. As a matter of fact, I saw a dead cat, a run over cat. I don't know if it was Pepper, but in Chris's mind, it could have been, which is horrific. Um, but yeah, to answer your question, he never went back to check on Pepper. That would have been hard. Like that would have been horrible to even live through. Warren G lightweight saved Def Jam sales wise. Yes, Warren G was a huge part of Def Jam staying open. Warren G and Redman. Pearl in the Carrier Dome was incredible. I only saw it on TV. I couldn't even imagine. Um, Patrick, wow, you got good questions there. KP, when Chris surprised you and told you that you were going to DJ tonight, I'm sure he was watching you and knew just the right time to let you get on stage. He probably was. He knew I was DJ. I was staying at his house and he could hear me DJing in the music room. Um, he probably, knowing him, he probably had it in the back of his mind. But when D Nice first said it, yo, you should have Kenny as your DJ. That would be dope. Chris was like, oh, hell no. So something happened between that. It couldn't have been more than a month and a half, a month, to, all right, you're DJing tonight. That was crazy. He threw me in 12 feet of water, just kicked me, go swim. Rosmel says Suge is always accusing someone of stealing an artist from him. He accused JD of stealing Bow Wow from him. Yes, he did. Um, Suge might have been projecting. Let me not diss Suge before he get out of jail and see this. Uh, Patrick White, don't ask. Don't ask for nothing. Don't touch nothing. The speech before leaving the house. That's mad funny. Oh, that's funny, Patrick. I can hear parents saying that. Don't ask for nothing. Don't touch nothing. Oh man, that's a good one. That is a good one. Uh, um, Moms used to do the same thing to me when we went to the supermarket. That was her way of telling me, "Don't ask for nothing." Yeah. Uh, let's see. A Boogie said, my former said the similar BS to me when I got the MVP over the player that he was closer to. Yeah, coaches be on sometimes coaches be on some real bullshit. All you can ask for is a fair shake, man. Just give me a fair shake, man. Hype Style, thank you so much, so much, so much for your contribution to the channel. Says Kenny Parker, the book is excellent. Thank you. I read it in 2024 and was amazed. Kenny, if you ever come to Dallas Fort Worth area, consider black bookstores like the Doc or Pan African Connection bookstore. I would love to come out there. I would love to do a bookstore tour. If I could, connect with somebody who does those kind of things, I would love to get that going so I can meet more people and talk about the book more. That would be great. Roswell says, I think KRS didn't have a problem with the writing because he knows the positive figure that he have become. Yeah, but plus he's so confident in himself that things don't bother him like that. Like I said, I put a lot of our family business in the street, even embarrassing things about myself and him and my whole family. And he read it and was just like, I don't care. Um, you know, but maybe part of it is because things turned out well. Maybe if things didn't turn out well, you're right, he might have had a different opinion. Who knows? Jack Swagger says Infinite versus Pepper, the saga. I never found out whatever happened to Infinite when my mother left. She might have taken Infinite, I think. Isaiah KP, when did Chris first start writing rhymes? Isaiah, did you get a chance to check out the book? I go into great details about that. But since we're in the book chat, I'm just gonna say I remember him writing around 79, 80. So he had to be like 14 because I was 13, like 79. Patrick Brown, my sister and I are similar to you and Chris. Just the fear of the strap was enough for me. My sister would take her chances and pay the price time and time again. That was me and my brother. I can't understand a person who would keep taking chances knowing what's gonna happen like that. It's just people's personalities, and you could see it from childhood. Daring kids from day one. And it's not like the belt didn't totally wreck his life. I could see, like, if he took a whip and extension cord and was just like, that's nothing. No, we used to get destroyed by this thing, and he would still be out there. Uh, Thank you, Greg Inez, for the compliment. Sharon Shabazz, peace, Kenny. I've been telling everyone I encounter to read your book. Thank you. It really touched me, as I told you in our interview. I cried like a baby a couple of times reading it. It's truly inspirational. Thank you, my brother. And we did a really good interview too. Hope everybody gets to check out Sharon Shabazz's channel. We did a really good interview. When was that? Last year? KP, if you follow up with a book sequel, perhaps titled The Kenny Parker Show, what have you learned in overall creative process that you would do differently? My creative process wouldn't be different. My business mind would be different. I spent most of the 90s thinking like an artist, and I would have thought more like a business person. Going back, I lost a lot of opportunities, blew off a lot of opportunities, thinking like an artist and being temperamental, or I only want to do this, and being a purist instead of thinking like a businessman trying to make as much money as I can while the iron is hot. You have a finite time in the music business. Everybody does. I don't care who you are. Even if you're Stevie Wonder, who had like 30 years, Diana Ross, these people had 30 years of hits. Even them, eventually it ends. Um, your mainstream success. And for BDP, we had one of the great runs. You talking 86 to Step Into a World came out in 97. That's 11 years. And then still making music after that. But the 11, 12 really strong years of really being in the mainstream. And I was in a very good position because I was producing at that time and a DJ for BDP, but also being KRS-One's brother gave me a bigger perception than even I actually was. And being the DJ for BDP and stuff, a lot of people thought I was doing all of the music, which I did this much of the music. But in those times of that era, I should have, and I was in the party every night. I should have been more promoting myself, giving people music, you know, trying to put myself out there more. I'm kind of a loner, so I don't really collaborate with a lot of people like that. But looking back on it, I probably should have, some of the rooms that I was in with certain people, I should have tried to collab more with people or just be part of someone's team. I just wanted to be down with BDP and that's it. Um, the, you know, one thing I learned about the music business is you have to worry about yourself. Yourself has to be number one. People that you think that are loyal to you, or people you're loyal to, or people that y'all have agreement, at the end of the day, people are going to do what's best for them. They'll drop you in a second. They'll turn their back on you in a second if they think another opportunity is over here. And I couldn't see it. I was just so caught up in being an artist, and I would definitely change my business mind. That is like my biggest regret in life, that I wish someone had sat me down. Really, Chris used to tell me things about the business here and there, like if I asked him questions. And plus, he told me a lot of things that I didn't seemed outlandish to me. And I'm like, Chris, I'm arguing with this guy. Dude is 5, 6 albums in, and I'm arguing with him about things about the business like an idiot. But I really wish that someone had really sat me down early and said, this is the rules. Like basketball, you can decide if you want to make a layup and take 3 steps if you want to, but a layup is 2 steps. And if you take 3 steps, it's a travel. I was living in my own rules and not the rules of the game. And now I'm older. I'm an old man. And so I'm not around young kids like that, or people I could mentor. And the game is a little different, but people always remain the same. And I wish I could talk to people. I've tried, and over the years, I've tried to talk to people coming into the game, people I knew, some of Chris's artists, and they just wouldn't listen to me. And then I saw how their careers turned out. I'm like, damn, I could see this coming a mile away. Um, those are my regrets going back. I wish I had more business. I wish I just knew what publishing was and credits and song structure. Like if you're in a room and you give opinions, you become a writer on that track. If you give opinions to a track and they use your opinions in this track, you become part of the creation of that track. Just that. You know how much stuff uh, things that I gave away just because that, I don't know. I'm ranting now, so let me get back on track. Um, One of the great, 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 great friends of the channel, Takashi Mandela. Thank you so much once again, as usual. DJ Kenny Parker, have you ever saw anyone from the boys' home ever again? Were there any success stories behind besides yourself? I saw this one kid, I can't remember his name right now, who I was real cool with in the group home. Um, right before, the whole thing with my man Anthony, I decided to never come back. I saw him right before I started writing the book. So that had to be like 5, 6 years ago. I saw him in Brooklyn around the same neighborhood that we grew up. He's still there. I ran into him and we were just talking for a second. And I was like, what projects? Me and him used to go, he had family in a projects. And we used to walk from my group home in deeper into Bed-Stuy to his family's projects. And I was like, what projects was that we used to go to? And he was like, Marcy Projects. So I was like, damn, I used to hang out in Marcy Projects in like 83, 84. I probably walked right past Hove. Hove is a little younger than me, but I probably like, I was in Marcy Projects a few times hanging with my man. I saw him when I first got down with BDP. There was a kid named Squid. Um, his name was Squid. I ran into him. Squid used to always be trying to act like a tough guy in the group home. I didn't. We were okay, but I didn't really care for Squid. Um, that's about it. I don't know what happened to any of those guys, man. Tell you the truth. I was only close, really close with a few of them. I mean, I was cool with everybody, like we were roommates, but once I left there, it wasn't like anybody. I was like, damn, I wish I could see so and so. Only my man Anthony Munderlin. I wish I could see him again. Don't even know if he's alive. Uh, let's see. Uh, I missed a few comments. Lindell says, KP, just checking in, still waiting on delivery. Thank you so much, Lindell. Get off the chat, Lindell. Get off. Wait to get the book. Um, Cutie Pie says, KP, I wanted to tell you that I understand why you feel the way you do about your mother. I also had a similar situation with my mom. My heart hurt for you knowing how much that hurt. I totally relate. Thank you so much, Cutie Pie. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people want me to reconcile with her. Maybe one day. I don't know. She's 80 years old. I don't know. Riding Dirty Face, what up? Doc of Cincy says the book really speaks to you and KRS resilience. Y'all are where y'all are today because of overcoming all that. Thank you. And I like I said, I didn't even look at it as resilience until years later. When I started writing the book and compiling everything together, which made me go back and look and was like, wow, you really was resilient. But like I said, living through it, it just seemed like normal life. Um, but thank you. Sharon Shabazz says the interview was September of last year. It was a great conversation. People can check it out here, and there's a link. Yeah, please, when you get a chance, check out this link. Sharon Shabazz, he did a really good interview about the book, about me, but the book in general too. Um, Patrick Wise says, yeah, KRS put KP at ease and had the plan in place to put KP on the path to shelter and structure. That's what big brothers do. Yeah, I guess you guys, I didn't see your comment, JT. I guess let me go back and see if I can find it. I guess you guys are talking about when Chris, it's gone. Um, I don't see it, but I guess you're talking about when I went to the group home and Chris helped me get into the group home, which is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Patrick Wise says, my sister would scream like she was getting killed, and then a few weeks later end up doing some dumb shit again that reintroduced her to the strap. A real risk taker. Yeah, that is that's funny. I don't understand those people. I It's just who you are. People are who they are, man. She cannot help herself. She has to get close to the flame. I can feel the warmth of the flame from a mile away and be like, "That's hot. Let me stay from over there." Do you play a keyboard? I'm not a trained musician by any stretch, but I have played keys on records. Little, notes here and there, but I'm not a trained keyboard player. Um, Beyond the Matrix says, growing up with a Dominican father and a Puerto Rican mother was no joke back then, I'm sure. I don't know what their standards are, but that generation was just swinging. Divine Existence says, KP, so long as you learn from past life experiences, you're winning. And that is the truth. That is the absolute truth. As long as you're learning from the past, you are winning. Um, I mean, I wanted to give a couple more incidences of things that was not in the book. I'm just checking out you guys' comments. Sharon Shabazz, did you ever run into any of the guys that bullied you as a kid when you were an adult? Only DJ, who I dunked on. I wasn't an adult, but it was like 6 years later. And Eugene when I was 15. As an adult, no. There's certain guys from my high school that I didn't really care for, who used to make a lot of slick remarks about my looks and stuff and my clothes and everything. And then they on my Facebook page talking about, KP, what's up? And we went to high school together. And I'm like, yeah, I remember. Do we have a different memory of high school? Because you wouldn't be on my page. I didn't say that, but you know. Yo, Kenny, if you ever see Joe in your later years and get him in a headlock, bro, man, I know you must have wanted to, but the words of Movado. Anyway, um, yeah, I had my chance in '89, but I didn't do it. Dude is still alive and kicking, man. Why is that? Why do people like that get to live long lives, man? Let me go back a little bit. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Um, oh, let me tell you guys just another real quick story. Guy mentioned MVP. This ties into a story that was in the book. I talked about how I went to Daryl's house and I rang the bell and he was laughing when he opened the door and he said, your mother called and said, go back home because you left the cabinet open. Um, and I said I was really walking on thin ice after that. And then right a little while after that, I got thrown out. There's an incident in between that. I was on thin ice, but then I got even on thinner ice. I had a basketball game. It was on like a Saturday. I was for the boys club, had an all-star game. We was taking an all-star team from the boys club from Flatbush all the way out to Coney Island to play against an all-star team they had for their boys club. So we had to travel out there. So for those that don't know Brooklyn, from Flatbush to Coney Island is like an hour on the train. My mother told me, for some reason I was in trouble for something, I don't remember. She told me to be home by 5 o'clock. And as you guys know, when my mother says be home by a certain time, you be home by that time or you sleep in the hallway, you sleep outside. The game was at like 1 o'clock. So I had plenty of time to get to Coney Island, play the game, and get back. Got out to Coney Island. We got there. The game was at 1. It started like 1:30. We played the game. Game went into overtime. By the time the game ended, it was like 4:30. And what I remember was I played so well in that game. We lost, but I got MVP. They only had one trophy they was giving out for everybody. They had one thing was MVP. That was it. And usually, for those that don't know basketball, MVP goes to a player on the winning team. But I played so well that they was compelled to give me the MVP trophy, and we lost. So now I'm riding home. It's 4:30. I'm in Coney Island. I have to be home by 5. We jump on the D train, and I'm riding home with this trophy, and my stomach is hurting once again because I'm like, yo, I know I'm in big trouble because I was already in trouble. That's why I had to be home at 5. Don't know what I did, but you guys can imagine it was something. I probably left another cabinet open or some shit. So by the time I got home, it was like 6 o'clock. And I remember I turned the key, and as soon as I opened the door, my mother was right there in my face. I screaming, I told you to be home at 5 o'clock. And her whole face was red. And I was like, oh, this is it. And I remember I said to her, look, Ma, I got a trophy. I got MVP. The game went overtime. That's why I'm late. And she looked at the trophy. And keep in mind, back then it was very, very hard to get a trophy. Nobody had trophies. You had to really be dope to get a trophy. It wasn't like those participation trophies now where everybody gets one. It was very hard. And when I said, look, Ma, and I had a trophy in my hand, and she looked at the trophy and she kind of calmed down, like, all right, like that. And I went to my room and I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, if I didn't get MVP of this game and have a trophy, I was done. I was done. She was that mad. I was done. But that trophy saved me that day. And then, like a week later, days later, something else happened and she threw me out again. And I slept on the train again by myself. So that trophy story was in the book as well. But then I decided to take that out for space. I was like, you know what? I explained to you guys that I left the cabinet open, and something like that, leaving the cabinet door open, is something that can get you in really big trouble in my house. And then I said, you know, something else happened, and I don't know what it was, but it was petty like the cabinet door. And then I was out. So, but in between that was the basketball game. So I probably would have been out that night. But because I had the trophy, it gave me a few more days. But I took that out, but that was in the book. And when you mentioned MVP, I just thought about that. Um, yeah. Cynthia, what up, Cynth? Says the book is well written, read it a number of times. Thank you, Cynth. Thinking back to talks we've had and info shared, something went through me. I have an even greater respect for the strength you found to move on. Thank you, Cynth. And you lived through, you probably, you lived through probably like 2 or 3 of those chapters. I knew you very well during that time. Um, Thank you, Cynthia. Much respect. You know how we do. JT says, I'm petty. If I got bullied as a child and became famous, I'd have told every last one of them bullies to kiss my hiney. I didn't even see them like that because I wasn't in Brooklyn like that at that time. So I didn't really see them. Um, I did tell y'all that DJ, who I dunked on, gave Daryl a demo tape. But I did tell y'all that years later. This had to be like 1990. He saw Daryl and he was trying to be an MC, and he's like, "Yo, can you give Kenny my demo?" And when I saw Daryl, he was laughing once again. Guess who gave me a demo to give you? DJ. And I said, "Okay." We were laughing. I said, "Okay, give me the tape. You did your job. You gave me the tape." I turned around and threw it right into the trash can outside. I didn't even. Daryl's hand to the trash. I said, "You did the right thing. You gave me the tape." That's the only revenge that I could really say I got. But I wish if I had more chances to be petty, maybe I would have. It just didn't. It just didn't manifest. Explicit to MVP. That's great. Yeah, thank you. That trophy saved my. I wish I still had that trophy. I left those trophies in the group home. All of those trophies. I never went back to get nothing. I just left everything that in that group home. I just left it there. Um, Sydney Rose says that's the truth. I didn't get one I didn't deserve. Yeah, it was hard to get a trophy back then. Yes, Tracy, please hit the thumbs up if you guys get a chance. Hit the thumbs up. And we're in overtime. We're in afternoon overtime. It's 2:34. I'm gonna talk a little bit longer. I'm gonna jump off. This is the book chat part 2. Trying to give you guys a little bit more insight to what was in the book and answer you guys' questions. Thank you so much for everyone who's read the book. I'm just so appreciative. Um, you guys don't even know. I think writing this book is the most important thing I've ever done in my life. So said, Kenny, do you think for a second she would snatch the trophy or break it? Walking in the door, no. Um, the way her face changed when she saw the trophy let me know it was okay, but she was steaming. She wasn't the type to break stuff. It would have been take your trophy and get out. That's what it would have been, which happened anyway. But um, JT says, Chandler, facts. Did the book make you review past interactions with KP in a new light? That's a great question, Cynthia. Did reading my book make you think of all the time we spent in college differently? Um, Your messenger says, which one are you on the cover? I am the first one on the cover. My brother is the second one on the cover. I believe he has on a white t-shirt. I'm first. I'm to left to right. I am first on the left. Patrick, why? You had to earn a trophy, which made you proud when you got one. Yeah, a tournament t-shirt and a trophy was like Christmas times. Yo, a tournament t-shirt, I mentioned it in a book, was everything. First of all, to make a team was everything. And then you had to prove it. You could say you was on the team. Where's your shirt? And when you came into the park with a shirt, when dudes were choosing up size, and like even if somebody didn't know you, because back in the day, to get on the court, it'd be 30, 40 guys in the park. And you're playing, we used to play half court a lot, sometimes full court. So even full court, let's say 5-on-5, that's 10 dudes play at a time. There's 30, 40 dudes in the park. So somebody would say, I got next. And somebody after that would say, I got next after that. That would be an argument too, who had next. But if you said you had next first, you got to pick your team for the next game. You could pick from from the team people that already played. You could pick from people on the sidelines. You could pick your friends. You could pick anybody you want if you got next. And if you had on a tournament t-shirt, a guy might pick you even if he didn't know you because he saw you had a shirt on. You must know how to ball. You got a shirt. Shirts were everything. And for me, that was my whole wardrobe. I mentioned in the book, I had no shirts. I had no shirts, just tournament shirts. Jack Swagger, question, rob for a pizza, rob for newspaper, money, gun aimed at you at least 3 times, bullied and beaten up. Have you ever been to therapy for all of this? No, not at all. I look at those things and I realize it's not my fault. So I don't put blame like I should have done things differently because I realized I was not taught. The mistake John Parker made and Joe not teaching me how to navigate in that environment caused a lot of these things to happen to me. So I look at it more like me getting robbed and jumped and all of that is a byproduct of bad parenting, not something I did wrong. Now, and once I found out on my own from observing Daryl how to maneuver in Brooklyn, I didn't have any more problems after that. Like none, almost none. I'll tell y'all a story real quick about getting bullied that I don't know if it was in a book, but incident. When I was 14, um, I went to check out one of my mans. His name was Pete. He had a backyard, and we always used to go play in Pete's backyard. So I went in Pete's, I forgot what street he lived on, but he lived between Nostrand and Bedford. And what I remember was I went to Pete's house, we played ball, then I was walking back home and I walked down this block and I got to the corner towards Nostra and there was a dude standing in front of a building and he just had an attitude for no reason. And he looked at me and was like, yo, get the fuck off my block. Matter of fact, keep walking straight and don't turn around. And he just said this to me. So now I'm walking scared. And he almost is like, I know this dude is right behind me. And so I kind of turned my head to peek, and he said, I told you don't turn around. Blah! And he punched me in the back of my head. Boom. I'm like, oh shit. And I didn't do nothing. I just hustled down the block, turned the block on Nostrand, and just kept going. Hold like, oh shoot, dude just punched me in my head for nothing. I didn't do zero. I just walked past him. Following year, I'm 15, and now after my revelation, now I'm feeling myself. I went to Pete's house, chilled with Pete, and now I'm coming down this dude's block, and I walked real slow right in front of his building because now I'm like, now I want to see this dude that punched me in my ear, punching back in my head last year. Now I want to see him because I'm going straight. I'm not even asking no questions. Like I'm going straight in this dude's mouth soon as I see him. And so I came down that block with my chest poked out, but he wasn't outside. And I actually slowed down and like looked around, like maybe he's across the street. Like I really wanted to see this dude, but he wasn't outside. And I just kept it moving. I went to Nostrand and I made the left and kept it moving. But looking back on it, like the jump from 14 to 15 was dramatic for me. And it was just my mind frame. And I was way bigger. I grew crazy bigger. But even if I had the same mind frame at 14, the dude, my demeanor coming down the street, he wouldn't even have said that to me. And if he did, my first reaction would have been like, well, don't wait for me to turn around. I'm here now. Like that would have been my reaction, my 15-year-old reaction at 14. Like, walk down the block, don't turn around. You might as well swing now. We already here. But then I was just like, and I look back at that kind of stuff like, damn. But I don't blame myself. I just blame my upbringing. That's a great question. We are in overtime, y'all. I'm trying to get the last questions in. I'm having a great time talking about the book, by the way. Thank you so much. This is very therapeutic for me, you guys. Um, uh, Matt, Matt TD, love the book and these afternoon specials. Much love and respect from Norway. Big up Norway. JT, this has been a great KP barbecue and good company. Oh yeah, it's Memorial Day weekend. It's a washout here in the New York area, but big up to everybody who's going to get some barbecue and have some fun, especially with loved one and family for Memorial Day. And thank you guys for giving me a chance on your weekend to come in this live. And for the Rewind crew that's going to check this out after you get some good barbecue in, big up. Um, Shout out to Benny Doyle, Spook Realm, Latrice Washington, Henry Cedillo, those who couldn't make it. Word. Um, Beyond the Matrix says, damn, I had to fight bullies and everyone between back then. Yeah. I wasn't a troublemaker, but I never backed down from a fight. The discipline I experienced helped me since I wasn't scared to fight. Yeah, I wish I wasn't scared to fight. Looking back on it, there's so many fights that I think I could have won. I would have taken some L's though, but there's some that I think I could have won had I had a different mind frame. But like I said, I wouldn't even have been in those situations because my body language would have been different. Power Soul said, this book may be the best autobiographies I've read in years. Great job, bro. Thank you so much. I really need to leave it at that. I wish you'd just sign off. All right, y'all, peace. No, I'm going to get to some more comments, but thank you so much. I really appreciate that. JT says, am I missing something? It's clear as day who's on the cover. You both still look the same. I would think so, but I don't know. Um, Patrick Ross says, KP, one of the saddest parts of the book is what happened to Stanley. Dude seemed like fun, flamboyant guy, but he was heading down the path of self-destruction and unfortunately met his fate. Yeah. But you got to understand, Stanley was a lot of fun, but he also was a career criminal. Keep that in mind. Um, like I said, he did a lot. He was in there because he was robbing and jostling. They called it jostling back then. He was a criminal, and the reason he got offed was because of his criminal activity. But me and him was super cool. I'm trying to think if there's any other incidences with Stanley, because he was only there for like a month, 6 weeks before he was gone. Um, he used to have a big part in the side of his head. I remember that. Remember those parts we used to get? He had a fat part, a big fat part in the side of his head. And smooth talker. I remember his girlfriend. She used to come around a lot, but he had multiple girls. But he had like one main chick. Um, I'm trying to think if I can remember anything about him more than what I put in the book. We played ball a lot. Um, he got in a fight with somebody in the group home for stealing something from somebody in the group home. I remember that. Dude hit him with a broom handle in his back, crack, and they started fighting. I remember that. Actually, he had a couple fights because there was another dude in there. It was a big dude. He looked like Rick Ross. Imagine Rick Ross. His beard wasn't as full, but he had like a smaller beard. But he was like 18. Because I remember while we were there, he aged out of the group home and they moved him into special housing down the block. He was 18, looked like Rick Ross, and could fight. But he was mad cool. He was a DJ too. He had DJ equipment in the group home. And he's the first person that played me Busy Bee versus Kumo D battle. He played that for me in '83, so it was like 2 years old. The first place I heard it was this dude. I can't remember the name. But he got in a fight with Stanley, and I wasn't there. But he was telling me like they got in something, and he punched Stanley in the face. Bah! Bust Stanley's mouth open, and then Stanley went and picked up a shovel, like one of them big ones that you shovel snow. They're really fat, and came at him. And so this dude went into the kitchen and closed the door and was holding the door so that Stanley couldn't get in. And Stanley took a chop through the kitchen door and cut this dude on his arm with the shovel. The shovel went through the door and cut him on his arm because he was holding the door. And then the counselors broke it up, and neither one of them got thrown out for that. That's grounds to get thrown out of a group home, but they didn't throw anyone out for that. So the kitchen door had a crack in it, a split in it because of Stanley. I remember that. I didn't see the fight. I just saw the crack in the door, and my man was telling me how he got cut. This dude was a crazy wild fighter. Like he could really fight, but he was mad cool. That I remember. But it's unfortunate what happened to Stanley though. But when you out in these streets doing shit, A Boogie said, if you had a Riverside Church, Gauchos, or other varsity jacket on, you was on. Yeah, man. Um, Shout out to my man John, who I talk about in my book. He was a Riverside Church legend. Um, I tried out for the Gauchos, and the funny part was I think I went because there's a basketball player named Carlton Screen. They call him Paco. He played at Providence University. That was my man. I was like my young boy. Shout out to Paco. Shout out to his brother Larry. Shout out to his father, Mr. Screen. Paco told me about trials for the Gauchos, and I remember I went there. I was 16, And I went there and I killed everybody at the Gauchos tryouts. And afterwards, the coach was like, how old are you? I said, I'm 16. He was like, yo, this is 14 and under. You hit the wrong day. It was like, oh, no wonder I was killing everybody. I was 16 and they're 14 and under. And he told me to come back on another day. But for some reason, I didn't come back. Well, I think I went to another team. So I never went to the Gauchos. But I could have possibly been on the Gauchos had I went back to the tryout. I remember that. I just thought about that. I'm just coming with random shit, y'all. It's time for me to get off. Um, City Rose says the book is therapeutic, might encourage someone else to tell their story. I really hope it does. Um, I really hope it encouraged somebody else to uh, tell their story. I see that D Nice is about to start writing his books, so we're gonna see his version of events. And my brother has a book. He has a book that never came out. He of his version of events, which is a little bit different than mine. So we'll see if he ever tells his side of the story. But he was happy with my side. So um, Samuel Gervais says, KP, I feel like we could exchange horror stories. My mom had these porcelain figurines, and if she came home and thought I had moved or touched them, I was in for a long night. Yeah, don't touch those. We didn't have anything like that, but yeah. Reggie 23, what up? Listening from New Mexico. JT says the other side of the story is that if you had found that hidden strength earlier, you may have lashed out at the world and ended up walking a whole different path. That is true, JT. And I believe that everything happens when it's supposed to happen, God's time. So, I had to come into my own when I came into my own. So I had to take a lot of L's when I took them to become the person that I am. You are correct, JT. Um, Patrick Wise says, growing up in New York City, Bronx was some serious rough times. We were in the crime capital of America for like 2 decades. The amount of trauma we endured with no therapy and no mental illness awareness. We just figured it as part of growing up. Parents had no idea. You are correct. It was such a toxic environment that it was normal. That's why when you tell people about New York, and they say if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. It is so true. Growing up in New York is not like anywhere else on earth, man. It was wild, 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 wild place, especially in those times. And this is before crack. Then when crack came, forget about it. Um, all right, I'm gonna get to these last few comments. Uh, A Boogie says Carlton screenplay for Providence University. Yeah. Yes, my man Paco went to Providence. Yep. Paco is the guy. You ever see the dunk in college? His name is Jerome Lane from Pittsburgh. Dunk and broke the backboard. And Bill Rafferty says, send it in, Jerome, send it in. He took off on a fast break and dunked it and broke the whole backboard. My man Paco was standing there trying to take a charge. And the dude broke the backboard on him. Crazy. Carlton screen. Patrick White, how many different cars did Biz have during the times you hung out? Whew. Well, me and Biz been hanging out from 88 up until the 2000s, but let's see. He had a Pathfinder when I first used to chill with him. He had a Pathfinder. No, when he first came to my dorm to pick me up, he had a BM. Then he had a Pathfinder. We used to chill in that. Then he got the 850 BM. We used to chill in that. This is all in like 3 years. This is back to back to back cars. Um, I don't remember the cars here. I know he had an SUV because I remember back in 1990, Had to be 1990 because I was still staying at Chris's house. This is right before I joined the group. Me and Chris went to some club. We was chilling in the club, and we was about to go home. Chris lives on 34th Street in Lexington in Manhattan. Fancy dude. He had 2 apartments in this one building. Um, and so we were gonna take a cab from the wherever we were back to Chris's house. It's like 2 in the morning, and we bumped into Biz. Biz was at the party. And I remember we got in the car. I don't remember what it was, but it was a big car because we all fit in there. And Biz said, I'll drop you off. And there was a girl in the car with Biz. So me and Chris in the back seat, Biz and a girl. And this is when Just a Friend was at its peak. Peak, peak, peak. So Biz was on fire. We in the car, and the girl is with Biz. She's obviously going with Biz, but she keeps looking back. And she says to Chris, damn, I know you from somewhere, man. I know you from somewhere. And Chris was like, maybe you do. He didn't say it. He said, you might. And she's like, do you make records? And he was like, yeah, but my songs don't be on MTV like that. And I don't know. It almost seemed like a slight to Biz because his record was on MTV every day. Chris wouldn't diss Biz like that because we all were really close. But the way he said it, like, you might recognize me, but I don't be on MTV like that. And it was just like, she just was scratching her head. I know when we got out the car, Biz was like, that's fucking KRS. But it, the exchange was odd. And I just remember looking at both of them and I'm just like, that's an odd exchange. Because at that point, Chris was still a gigantic star. Was Love's Gonna Get You out? Love's Gonna Get You wasn't out. You Must Learn was out. So is that time. But anyway, to answer your question, I can remember like 3 or 4 cars from Biz. China Doll gave a reply and I can't see it. I don't want to get off without seeing what she said. Oh, man. I'll have to look at it afterwards. Oh, here we go. At JT, the book brought back memories of lots of talks KP and I had, not necessarily in a new light, but highlighted areas about his mannerisms, cautious assessments, and dealing with others. Oh, wow. Okay, Sid. I guess so. Mannerisms, cautious assessment. I am very cautious, and dealings with others. That is very interesting. I used to be at Cynthia's dorm room every day. Um, Beyond the Matrix says, thank you, KP. I read your book and it helped me work on a trauma I experienced. Thank you for this platform. Thank you so much. Wow. I really appreciate that. That is really the purpose of the book. Thank you so much for your testimony. That is dope. Riding Dirty Face, New Mexico. All right, I'm at the bottom. We're approaching 2 hours. I could do this all day, but I'm gonna jump off so everyone could enjoy their weekend. Um, Patrick White, JT, do you keep a knife on you? Growing up in New York kind of makes you do that. We're not allowed to have firearms, but um, China Doll says, JT, you're welcome and thank you. Much appreciated. KP is a great friend. I'm thankful for our friendship. Yes, me too, Cynthia. Uh, nope, never. My dad and brothers would have wrecked me if I brought a knife home. My family taught me how to fight and did martial arts for years. Um, when I was 10 years old, my mother put me in this thing called the PAL, Police Athletic League. And that's when I first touched the basketball when I was 10. She put me in the Police Athletic League. and a lot of kids would come there after school. I learned to play pool there and everything. And I remember I was in fifth grade. I remember walking from my fifth grade class to the PAL, and I found a switchblade, ones that you open. I think it's called a switchblade, open and close. I found one on my way to the to the not the boys club, to the PAL. I remember I had it in my book bag, and I had it, and I was like, wow. And then my boy who was in there, I said, yo, look what I found. And I showed him the switchblade. We opened it and closed it. I was like, yo, I found this on the way here. He went and told. I remember the counselor came over to me and took me to come into the office, took me in the office, and he saw the switchblade. He's like, where'd you get this from? And I was like, I found it on my way here. And he took it from me and was like, we should throw you out of this PAL. Um, don't you ever come back in here with something like this again. You're lucky I don't throw you out. And I got in like trouble. And I wasn't like gonna stab nobody or nothing. I just found it on my way. And this dude ratted on me, man. Sucker. All right, on that note, PAL, when cops used to be part of the community, not terrorizing them. Yes. Um, yeah, I'm gonna leave it on this note right here, Tracy. Tracy said this made my weekend. Thank you, KP and chat fam. Yeah, this made my weekend too. Uh, there's still more. Like I feel like there's more stuff to talk about, but I'm gonna get off. I'm jumping off here. This is it. JT says this has been a blast. My belly is full and KP to live it. Thank you. Let's leave it right there. Um, Big up to the Rewind crew who's gonna check this out later on. And this is book chat number 2, which is slightly off kiltered. This is book chat number 2, and maybe we'll have another 3 if you guys need. But okay, we out of here. Peace, y'all.